everyone, this is Corey with Sims Investment Management. This is another market update, and it's almost mid-September 2023, and I'm going to call this the Perspective month, the Perspective video, the Perspective newsletter, because I'm going to try and put a lot of things in perspective. We're going to start with just kind of a quick recap of the past 4 to 6 weeks. The market overall was down about 2% or so in August. August and September historically are the slowest months of the year. Based on the time period that you look at, they either have been slightly positive or slightly negative on average. But typically speaking, we kind of get through that summer lull, and the market historically has bottomed somewhere around the mid of October, and then historically rallied into year end, the infamous kind of Santa Claus rally. So we'll see if that happens again this year. So far it's up about 16% as we've recovered a good chunk of what the market gave up last year in 2022. Okay, perspective. There's a couple really great resources this month. One is by Scott Galloway, who some of you may or may not be familiar with. He puts out typically a weekly article, and some weeks I think it's great, some others I don't necessarily agree with his points or his views, but I always try and give it a read because I think he does a fairly good job of providing enough data and analysis for you to formulate your own opinion. And this past week's was called Least Bad. And essentially it was a look at how the U.S. continues to perform relative to other countries. And I've said this many times before, we have our own sets of problems here in the U.S., but we still remain, honestly, the best house in a bad neighborhood. And I really appreciated a lot of the data that Scott Galloway had in his article. So link to that will be in the newsletter. Another really great article called The Wonders of Economic Growth. And I've also talked about this in the past a little bit. I think I found my new favorite quote, which is, "Nothing is more responsible for the good old days than a bad memory." And that was by Franklin Pierce Adams, actually about 130 years ago when he said that. So this piece does a quick 5-minute read that looks back over the economic growth that we've seen specifically over the past few centuries. But then he provides some information even going back about 1,000 years, which is, again, just putting everything in perspective that everything is not doom and gloom. And the good old days are not behind us. We just need to maybe re-educate ourselves on how far we have come. The last piece I'm going to kind of talk about from a perspective standpoint has to do with mortgage rates and the overall real estate in kind of sector. So many people keep trying to predict for real estate's bubble to burst. And yes, there are some concerns with some commercial real estate, specifically your traditional office market space, but not all commercial real estate is created equal. And the commercial real estate that could be in trouble is much more isolated than, for instance, like a 2008, 2009. So if you think about the residential real estate market, I know there's still a lot of frustrated buyers out there because they just cannot find a house, or maybe they're losing bids to cash buyers. It's also not uncommon right now to see people that don't have cash, but maybe baby boomers are helping provide some of the cash for the millennial generation. But if you think about interest rates really, if you look past the past 40 to 50 years, have hovered somewhere around the 6 to 6.5%. And that's where we are. I know we had about 15 years of super low interest rates that are skewing people from a recency bias standpoint. But if you look back over the past 40 to 50 years, especially since home ownership really started to take off after World War II, we're right around the average of where interest rates have been. So hopefully that puts a little things into perspective. Again, We're expecting the Fed to pause this month with hiring, with raising interest rates. We'll see how the economic data comes in for the rest of 2023. There could be a recession on the horizon into 2024, but I will end with something that we continue to tell our clients. Regardless of the headlines or the market response, if your goals have not changed, do not change your plan. And if your plan is not changing, then your investment should not be either. And if you or your loved ones don't have a plan, then give us a call so we can get one in place. Hope you guys have a great rest of your summer and start the fall, and we'll talk to you next month. Thanks.